Call the Kitty Hawk Town Council order this Tuesday, July the 5th, 2016, at Kitty Hawk Town Hall. It is now 6 p.m. Would you join us for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you to those that are out here tonight. I think most of you have business, and for those that tune in later, thank you for paying attention to your local government. Call for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second. And we have a motion and a second. You got it?
Yes, sir.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Now we have presentations. We have Ms. Donna Hefferman, Administrative Zoning Technician, and you might call her that, but I'm telling you, when somebody comes in for something to deal with planning or building inspections, she's the one that gets it and does it. So, come on up, Rob.
We've got the recognition of service for Donna Heffernan, who's now been with the town for 15 years. Just want to say she's a tremendous asset to the town with all the hard work she does with the zoning issues, building permits, floodplain management, the CRS, which I know can bog her down from time to time, but she's always putting in a lot of hard work for the town, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you for your work. She's always there to answer questions. She knows the history or the skeletons, whichever you look at, but she's got an answer for us, so she is an asset and has been. And I'm surprised that I've been here almost as long as you. That keeps surprising me. I just ain't handled that. All right. And now we have health insurance plan changes. Are you going to deal with that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, members of the Town Council. We have today Dan Dorizzi, sorry, from JWB Insurance. He's going to give us a quick overview of the health plan for this next fiscal year for our employees, kind of how it's structured and funded. And then I'll go over we did save a substantial bit of money by changing the plan this year. All the benefits remain the same, but there is the way that the plan is funded itself has changed. So JWB will be basically our insurance broker who's gone around and shopped some of these plans for the town. So with that being said, I'll turn it over to Dan, and we'll get you pulled up here on the PowerPoint.
Yes. Thank you, Indy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the board. Thanks for having me here today. I think this is where. There we go. Where's this? Thank you, Melody. My name's Dan Odorizzi. I am with JW Insurance Group, like Andy said. We shot things out pretty aggressively this year, and we looked for some different solutions for the town. Main emphasis, not cutting benefits, just trying to do things in a different way that maybe made a little more sense. There are some new programs available now. Your old plan with Blue Cross and Blue Shield was considered a fully insured plan, meaning that Blue Cross sets its rates, and then you pay that rate every month. And no matter how high your claims go, their obligation is to pay the claims. Downside to those plans is that if you have a good claims year, then you get no refund at the end of the year. Blue Cross kept that money as profit in their pockets. What we ended up moving you to is a self-funded plan, but it's a self-funded plan that really mimics a fully insured plan on the protection end. Meaning that Cigna set its rate at the beginning of the plan year. No matter how high your claims go throughout the year, there are what they consider stop-loss reinsurance contracts in place. So you will not be held liable for paying claims higher than what they have, the rate that they have set, what their actuaries have said they thought your rates were going to come in at. And I don't want to get too high level here, but the advantage of this is, at the end of the year, if you have a good claims year, there's going to be a refund that the town will get, so you will get some money back. So there's basically some skin in the game now for your employees, hopefully. And we can look at some different wellness initiatives. Cigna is very good at doing wellness type things to try to make sure that the employees are utilizing the plan the most thoughtful way possible, and that there are some incentives in there for them to try to be a little more healthy in order to keep the claims costs down. That's good for everybody in the long run. So I just brought this quick slideshow I got from Cigna. Why self-funding? I thought that this slide was, you know, it's a little hokey, but I think it kind of makes a lot of sense. Fully insured fixed premium is like paying for television. It doesn't matter how many hours you watch, you still pay for it. Self-funded works like your electric bill. There will inevitably be costs, but some are controllable, like turning the lights off in your house. Okay, so that's the idea of trying to get the employees to use the plan wisely, make sure your claims stay down, and then money comes back to the town at the end of the year. This is just a general overview of how it all works. Your stop loss coverage is the yellow line. That's the protection that's in place in case claims do go high. And you know, there are those inevitable claims that do come through every now and then. One of your employees has, let's say, preemie babies or something like that, and there's a very high claims in there. The town will not be held liable for paying those claims. You're going to pay at the level where Cigna has set your rate, and that is your inevitability. Okay? Why level funding? Well, it simplifies and retains the best features of self-funding. So level funding plan, remember I said it's kind of a hybrid of a truly self-funded plan. A true self-funded plan is where the employer is responsible for all of the claims that come in for the employee with no protections. That's really in place for large businesses. You know, your 500 to, 10,000 employee companies. They know that they have such a large employee pool that it's going to be in their best interest just to pay the claims that come in from their employees, and they don't really need the protections except for very high level claims. Level funded plans like we put you onto with Cigna have the protection in place, and that's where predictability comes. So the second piece over there. So you have flexibility in plan design. So we were able to mimic exactly the plan that Blue Cross and Blue Shield has in place. And we did actually increase the benefits a little bit in one area. We put on a rider to the prescription benefit, which covers all of the preventative prescription drugs for free. So the employees can get all preventative drugs at no cost to them, which is a good thing. You want them to take those drugs. So that's the idea here. You want them to incur claims in those areas where you can keep them healthy, and hopefully that stems the tide of a major catastrophic claim in the long run, right? Predictability, that's where your stop loss coverage comes in, so you will not have to pay claims over a certain level. Savings potential, at the end of the year, if you have a good claims year, you're going to get some money back. And then utilization reporting, that's something that Andy and Melody can utilize in-house. We can review reports, see how the employees are using the benefits, and really, down the road, tweak the benefit plan as needed to best suit how the employees are using the benefits. And that's something that with your size company, on a fully insured plan like Blue Cross, they won't give you any of those reports. Okay, so that's another good thing that we're going to with Cigna here. They have complete transparency with the claims. How are the employees using the benefits? How can we use that data to basically create an even better benefit plan for them down the road that makes a lot of sense from a financial end. Level funding, how does it work? This is just a general overview. I don't want to get into this too much with you. I kind of explained how it works. Reimbursement of unspent claims dollars. At the end of the year, so basically the way it works is Cigna is going to look at all of the pre-existing conditions that your employees have. We did underwriting. They also look at what their administrative costs are, and they create basically an amount of money, I like to call it a bucket, of what your anticipated claims plus administrative fees are gonna be. And then you add a bit of a buffer. And that's, fully insured companies do that as well. So really, instead of 100% of what your claims bucket's gonna be, it's 125 because they include a buffer in case you have a bad claims year. So that extra 25% that they've built into the rates is what, if you don't go into that in your claims year, you will get that back, okay? Cigna will take 1/3 of it and the town will get 2/3 back. So I think that's a very good win-win for everybody at the end of the year if that does happen. And we anticipate it will. Cigna, rated your company very aggressively because it looked like a very healthy population. Who are the ideal candidates? Groups that are accustomed to fully insured, just like the town was. They want predictability in payments and transparency, need greater control and flexibility, need consistent plans across multiple markets, want better reporting, and want to participate in the health and wellness of their members. So this is just a slide that I created. Just this in summary, why Cigna level funding was the best fit for the town of Kitty Hawk. So there are immediate cost savings, which I think Andy's going to get into in a minute. Richer benefits. We included the free preventative prescription benefits for the employees. I think that's a pretty big benefit increase actually for them. Most of the prescription drugs that your employees here are taking are probably going to be impacted by this. So it's going to have a direct impact on the employees and the amount of money that they're going to have to come out of pocket for. Cigna was the top-rated carrier for claims payments, so they're a very good company. They're going to pay the claims well. There shouldn't be disruption from your employees by making this change from Blue Cross to Cigna. Rate protection, you're never going to pay more than the set rates that they've already set. So every month you pay the same rate for employees. You're not going to have to pay more even if you have a bad claims year. There's a potential for the refund at the end of the year. And then here's the big thing, positioning to avoid the ACA community rates and limited small group plan designs in 2017. So this is the piece that it's kind of ancillary to the benefit plan. And it revolves around what's happened in the insurance market over the past few years. So the Affordable Care Act has mandated that companies that have less than 50 employees be subject to mandated benefits and community rates. So they won't look at the town employees and say, okay, you have a very healthy population here, we're going to set the rate a little bit lower than some company down the road that has a less healthy population. Everybody's going to be paying the same thing in a community rated scenario. The town is under 50 employees, so next year, when you come up for renewal, if you had stayed on Blue Cross and Blue Shield, you would have had to have gone on to a fully compliant Affordable Care Act plan, which would have had community rates. And that could have negatively affected your rates here at the town, I'm guessing by potentially 50%. So you would have looked at, just because you would have jumped into community rates, a 50% increase in your rates, would have been my guess. Now, that's just a guess, but that would have been something very negative, that by going into this level funded plan, you are avoiding having to go and abide by the regulations of the Affordable Care Act. Okay, so that's a good thing. You're able to control your outcomes better. If your employees are healthy, your rates are going to be lower and you're going to get money back at the end of the year. Okay? The other thing is that with Affordable Care Act mandated plans, the flexibility in plan design isn't as great as it is outside of the Affordable Care Act world. So there is a very big potential that the plan that you were on with Blue Cross and Blue Shield would have gone away and you would have had to have picked a different plan to go onto for the employees, which could have affected them negatively. So by moving to the self-funded world, you avoided all of those regulations that the Affordable Care Act has brought in. You're basically looking at the best of everything at this point in time. Complete flexibility in plan design and rate control, and the ability to get rate back at the end of the year. So those were really the reasons why we made the change. Any questions?
That makes sense to me. The only question I have for Andy, for the record, staff that bought into this?
Yes, we had a employee meeting, notified the employees of what we were looking to do, and to get back with Melody or myself if you had any issues with what the plan was moving forward. And some of the employees, I think we received some positive feedback, especially on the plan is a lot cheaper. I'll get into that here in a second. And not only that, it's the same benefits, and the employees, I think we're going to receive, for a less cost, a better benefit as well. So they seem to like the idea of doing that, not only saving the town some money, but they also realize moving forward that, if they can work with the town, and, the town, can help continue to provide those benefits, because there's a lot of communities and businesses that no longer even do that. So I think they were thankful, and I think they were okay with any of the plan. There's really no planned benefit changes, just moving to the Cigna network is pretty much what we're doing, so.
All right.
And if,
Finish her up.
yep, and what I'll do here is just kind of take you an overview. Melody, our Human Resources Coordinator, she spent a lot of work compiling with different insurance companies, so there were probably 10 or 12 proposals. We even had proposals from another insurance broker as well. But Dan seemed to really put forth a good effort into kind of putting a plan before us that worked for everyone. So what we had before was the Blue Cross Blue Shield, and simply by moving to Cigna with the same benefits, the town is paying currently $8,700 per year for a premium for our employees, and that cost will go down to $6,400 a year, savings of about $2,300 per employee. Same thing with child. The town pays 50% coverage for child and family coverage, and the employee pays the difference. So if you look through these rate savings alone from what we budgeted in 16-17, it's a savings of about $147,000. So it's close to a 25 to 30% savings from what we're paying now for the same benefit. So I think from the savings standpoint and the benefits being the same, the employees had no problem moving to the Cigna plan. And so I think what this will allow us to do, hopefully moving forward, is to maybe take some of the savings to set aside for maybe some future increases. As we all know, the health insurance world, constant increases every year. So with that being said, I think we just wanted to present that to the council to see if you had any questions or comments. While Dan's here, Miller did a great job at putting all this together, and quite a bit of savings there for the town as well. So.
Council, are we all good with this? We don't need a motion.
I'm good.
It's a manager
Excellent
thing.
job there.
Great.
Good job.
Great.
Thanks, Melody.
I appreciate all the work that you put into it, and I will tell you from the experience of my young grandchildren, two of them didn't do the marketplace. They didn't have insurance, and then the marketplace came and took their money when they came to get their refunds at the end of tax year. And a third one who basically, he didn't have a job when the opening period was there. Then he got a job, but of course it didn't pay any money, so he got his money taken too. That's three of them. So this situation is out of control. Staff needs to appreciate what they have, and that's really what I'm trying to say. All right, we got it. We'll move on. Thank you. Thank you, Melody, for the work you did. All right, next is public comment. Lynn, anybody signed up?
No, sir.
Anyone present want to speak at the public comment? Let the record show no one came forward. Next is the consent agenda. Call for a motion to approve the consent agenda, or if there are no changes?
May I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as listed?
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved with nothing removed. Next, we have a public hearing, and it's a town code text amendment to eliminate a requirement for a 50-foot buffer in a PCD and any non-residential zoning districts. All right, so this is a public hearing. I'll call for a motion to go into public hearing. Do you hear a motion?
So moved.
Do you hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Rob, we're now in public hearing.
As you mentioned, this text amendment, proposed text amendment is for the PCD district for 42-419-3, the minimum buffer required. You can see in the staff report the proposed language change. Currently, there's a 50-foot buffer required in any exterior boundary line of the PCD district. This, if it were approved, would put in the exception that where the PCD abuts a non-residential zoning district, that 50-foot buffer would not be required. I've shown on the zoning map here, if I can focus it a little better, the areas that we have zoned PCD in town is back here, which is part of Beechwoods, the Home Depot property, and then to the northeast or northwestern side is where the promenade is, over near the BH1, right when you come off the bridge. The red lines that I've drawn in here are the only property boundaries that, or zoning boundaries that the text amendment would affect. Should note also, it's pointed out in the staff report, the Home Depot property, they cannot expand any further than what they are for lot coverage issues. So you don't have to worry about any of the buffer requirements on this property or here right above shoreside. The PCD that's owned by Beechwoods, there's one boundary line, I believe it's this line right here, that the text amendment would affect. The other boundaries that are a little further north, there's a wetlands conservation easement up there, so they wouldn't be able to develop anywhere in that area. And then the other PCD part, the boundary to the west abuts the BC2, and the two zones are divided by Barlow Lane. To the east of the PCD is the OBX Chevy, and this boundary is the BH1, where currently Brian Newman has the horse barn located out there. There is, it looks like from the aerial imagery, along this boundary, there's a parking area that already encroaches that 50 feet, and possibly the miniature golf that's along that boundary. Couldn't quite make that one out. So if this is approved, it would bring both of those into conformity, as well as the playground structure that was built on the Beechwoods property that's within that boundary. The planning board, you'd asked me to do some research about how the language was initially put in, and I included in the staff report the original language from the 1988 approval of the PCD district. And looking back through the minutes and staff reports I could find, I couldn't find any specific discussion on that buffer, why it was set as it was. I did find, as I was going through the file, PCD and PDD ordinances from localities from the East Coast out to San Diego and Albuquerque, New Mexico, that it looked like they had just, the planner at the time, I guess, looked at what other localities had in their ordinances and just put in something comparable. And then from the original language that was adopted in '88, in November of 2014, this same subsection was amended to create the exemption from the minimum buffer requirement for instances where the PCD abuts a PUD, which is just this property line here. So the planning board reviewed this at its May 12th meeting and found that it was consistent with the adopted land use plan and unanimously recommended approval of the text amendment. I'll turn it over to council, and the applicant is here if there's any questions for him as well.
Right. Council, any questions of Rob?
No, sir.
No?
I have no questions.
All right. I don't have any questions. Thank you for doing the research. At least it lets us know that we're not undoing something somebody intentionally did. They just, it seems like on the face of it, the planner at one time was looking at one thing and he didn't match it up with another thing, but the two are compatible. So let the record show that. All right. Does anyone wish to speak at this public hearing? Anyone? All right. If you have anything to offer now, this is the time to do it, because once we go out of the public hearing, council will make a decision without any further input. It's the way North Carolina law works. Let the record show no one came forward. Do I hear a motion to go back into regular session?
So moved.
Do I hear a second? Lynn seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're back in regular session. Council, what do you want to do with this?
I'll make a motion.
All right,
I move to adopt the proposed text amendment amending the subsection 42-419, parentheses 3, eliminating the requirement for a 50-foot buffer area between PCD and non-residential zoning districts. Town council finds that the proposed text amendment is consistent with adopted CAMA land use plan and finds these amendments to be in the public interest.
do I hear a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. All right, that part's done. Your playground can stay in place. All right, next we have a planning for a site plan review. It's Beach Woods Phase 2 Alpha. All right, Rob, would you do this?
All right. The Phase 2A that's in front of us tonight was formerly Phase 4 on the original approval. Beechwoods has gone in, they're kind of reconfiguring some of the phases. This one was previously approved in February of 2004 and was approved for 24 units. Since the approval, 3 of the buildings have been constructed, and then there was some pause in construction work, and since that time, they've reconfigured what they wanted to do with this phase. So we've got the revised site plan in front of us. Phase 2A is now proposed to have 26 units, but the overall number of units and bedrooms in the Beechwoods development as a whole is not changing. They're just shifting some units and bedrooms from one phase to a different, to a new phase. This proposal is for 5 new buildings, each of them containing 4 units. There's a mixture of 4 and 2-bedroom units in them. The proposal also calls for the extension of the existing parking area and a new ingress-egress point on the Cypress Knee Trail. And on the plan, it's a little tough to make out on here, but these 3 buildings here are the ones that are already created, that are already built. There's going to be 2 additional ones to the north of those, and then 3 additional ones to the south. This is the parking area that will be expanded and tied into Cypress Knee Trail on the south end of it. As I mentioned, with the overall units remaining the same and bedrooms, the density is not changing. So all of the zoning requirements for the PUD, the density requirements, all of it's going to remain compliant with what was originally approved for the, at the time, Barrier Island Station, now Beechwoods. The adopted CAMA land use plan designates this property as a higher density residential area on the future land use map. The proposed development of the additional multifamily units in the development is consistent with this designation. Just as some recommended conditions for approval, a revised stormwater permit should be obtained and provided to the town prior to the issuance of building permits. I understand from the engineer that's already in process, so that shouldn't hold anything up. A revised erosion sediment control plan will need to be submitted and approved by the town prior to any land disturbing activities. And there's a note from the applicant that the existing wastewater facility appears that it should be sufficient to handle the additional usage. We'll just require that approval from the health department before we issue any building permits for the new buildings as well. The planning board reviewed this at its June 16th meeting and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the proposed revised site plan for Beechwoods Phase 2A. If you have any questions of myself or the engineer, they're both on hand.
The aerobic site septic system is different. That's not the same one that is the Walmart Harris Teeter one, correct? It's a separate system? I wanted to make sure I understood that. I thought it was. All right. I don't have any other questions. Looks like it was already ready. Council, you have any questions?
No, sir.
All right. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to grant approval of this site plan for the proposed Phase 2A of the Beechwoods development located at 1 Cypress Knee Trail, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. Town council finds that the plan is consistent with the Campbell Land Use Plan.
Do I hear a second? Second. All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Build your houses. All right. Now we missed the planning board in the hustle last meeting, so we need to make that right. A man that is there, Gary Muir, wants to stay there. So do I hear a nomination for the planning board?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reappoint Gary Muir as an alternative on the planning board with a term of office to expire June the 30th, 2018.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Mr. Muir is on, and we've got our record straight now. All right, update the emergency response and recovery plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of the Kitty Hawk Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan is to establish a plan for systematic, coordinated, and effective response and recovery from emergencies or disasters occurring in Kitty Hawk. The plan establishes a comprehensive framework of policy and guidance for emergency preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigation operations. The plan also details authorities and responsibilities of each of the town's departments during an emergency event, and utilizes Kitty Hawk's resources necessary to preserve the health, safety, welfare of those persons affected during various emergencies. The plan has been updated as you have before you. Basically, it's an overview of what we do in an emergency situation, or if we know there is a threat of an emergency, before and after the emergency. We had a meeting several weeks ago with the mayor, Mayor Perry and Vice Mayor Garris, to kind of go over some of the plan design and what everybody's responsibilities are. The main things, what this did is allowed our staff, with me being new, I think it kind of brought everyone up to speed as what we're supposed to do here when we do have an emergency on our hands, how we work with the county, the EOC, and the mayor, and the rest of the staff. It was a good review process for them, and the plan requires the town manager to review this on a yearly basis. So this is why it's before you this evening. There were several updates. The department heads looked over it again. There are some updates and some forms there towards the back as far as the condemnation notices, some things that wasn't included. But the plan itself is a very well-written plan, I feel, and very detailed, and had a lot of work put in it over the years. And so this is just to approve the changes that were made to the plan. Nothing major, mainly just minor changes.
All right, yes, and the one thing that, if anybody out there is paying attention, that we made a recommendation to add photographing and cataloging public facilities and soundfront property after Irene. We kind of realized that we're concentrating on the ocean front, and they have to photograph and document before a storm what's happening there, so that we can, when FEMA comes in, they can say, well, what was it and what is it now? Well, we learned that the sound side kind of suffers the same thing. So if anybody is paying attention and you're wondering why the code enforcement officer or staff is out there taking pictures on the sound side, it's because we learned a lesson. We're trying to make it work, all right? And some of the other things have to do with fire departments and different things. But basically, it's just an updating of the plan that we go by every time we have a storm or something of that nature. Do I hear a motion to approve the updated emergency preparedness, response, and recovery plan?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve updates and changes to the emergency preparedness, response, and recovery plan.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. And next, we got flood insurance mapping.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a brief overview of the new FEMA flood insurance rate maps. The last time that these maps were updated were in 2006. So now FEMA has done their studies and they're ready to basically present the preliminary maps as far as how our insurance rate maps and how that will affect your flood insurance. And it's basically done through the National Flood Insurance Program. That's why the town participates in this, and we draft ordinances to be in compliance with these flood maps and policies, because it makes flood insurance available to our residents and also makes flood insurance cheaper for our residents to be able to acquire. So the purpose of the National Flood Insurance Program is to make flood insurance available, to identify floodplains and areas at risk of flooding, and provide standards, guidance, and framework to help communities manage floodplains. So this is sort of just an overview of the presentation that we received through the county, sort of the kickoff meeting on June 20th that was attended by the mayor, the town manager, and the planning department. So we kind of just wanted to bring this to council and the general public to let them know of the new rate maps that are going to be issued and what the public participation is in that process of issuing those maps. The minimum floodplain regulations under the National Flood Insurance Program elevate all structures in special flood hazard areas to at least a base flood elevation published by FEMA. So we have to elevate our structures above that base flood, and that's one thing that's required to participate in the program. Protect all utility systems to at least the base flood elevation published by FEMA. The base flood elevation is determined to the nearest foot of the 1% annual chance of flood, or the 1% is the 100-year flood event. So they determine sea level, and they determine how high you need to be above that in case of a flood or a big storm event, how much the sea level rises, the wave action. There's a whole lot of studies that go in to determine the base flood and how high you have to be. The bottom floor of your structure has to be from the sea level. Community rating system. This is basically a voluntary program that rewards floodplain management initiatives that exceed the minimum National Flood Insurance Program requirements. The three goals of this is to reduce flood losses, facilitate accurate insurance ratings, and promote the awareness of flood insurance. Initiatives that meet these three goals can result in reduced flood insurance premiums for citizens, and all Dare County communities currently participate in this community rating system. And you can see the discounts that we receive for the flood insurance for participating in this and adopting our ordinances and having the building codes the way that we do for our residents. So Kill Devil Hills is 20% and Kitty Hawk's 20% as far as a discount. So we pretty much follow the rules of the FEMA. FEMA is currently in the process of updating the flood insurance rate map. Like I said before, the last time it was updated was in 2006. And the process takes a long time to do, but right now there's 4 steps in order to where we get to generate the map. The first is they do the discovery. They look at all the wave effects. They measure the dune line. They do the storm surge. They look at all previous storms that have taken place, and then they do all their scientific reporting. And then they do a base map acquisition, and then they do the map production. Right now, we're at the 4th stage of this, developing the map, and that's the post-preliminary processing. That's the current phase that we're in. What is the post-preliminary processing? Basically, this is where everyone will be mailed, provided a link to, the preliminary flood hazard data for Dale County will be provided as a link in the mail preliminary issuance letter on June 30th. So everybody will receive a letter notifying them of these possible changes to your rating, to your flood insurance rating. And then there'll be a 90-day appeal process where general public, the town, any agency can appeal. If you're in a different flood, have a different flood rating, you can appeal that to FEMA. So they have to go through this entire process, and that'll be at a public participation meeting that will be scheduled, and that'll be advertised for the public to be aware of, where we'll have them come in and probably give an overview in some sort of meeting of the new flood rate insurance maps. And then there'll be 90 days to appeal. The post-preliminary processing, engineering models are made available to the county and unincorporated communities after maps are released preliminary. Earlier is on a case-by-case basis, and models are available to the public, including citizens and businesses and other private entities after the maps are released preliminary. Right now, the maps are available. I'll give you the website. But basically, once the maps are released, you can look at your property. You can see if anything's changed as far as the insurance, the rating itself, the flood insurance rating. If you're an X or an LE, you have to excuse me. I'm kind of new to the ratings themselves, but they do affect your health. They do affect your flood insurance. So after they go through and give the presentation, if you have any appeals, you can appeal to John Norman or Luis Rodriguez from FEMA. So there's some information here, and we'll have this on our website. You can, for the general public, to get more information regarding these. And then the post-preliminary, any changes to the preliminary flood data will not affect the flood insurance policies until after the effective date of the flood insurance study. So we're looking at 2 years out before anything changed while they did their maps. You're looking at 18 to 2 years before it would be implemented and your rates would be affected by that change. The date will be established by FEMA through the final determination once submitted appeal and comments are evaluated and resolved. So what happens after this is basically the North Carolina map adoption, there's a public hearing for the new rate insurance maps and flood insurance reports. The notice of the hearing is published in the local media. And then what we'll have to do is once the maps are generated and approved, we'll have to change our ordinances to make them in compliance with the base flood elevations and the new policies that are set forth as a result of the new mapping. Local responsibilities, we'll have to revise our ordinances, and there will be a significant burden on communities, as some may have to adopt the new FIS reports and update their ordinances multiple times for a year. And then that was basically the whole slideshow there. Now, they presented some other things on rate increases that have been since 2014. There's some, I'm not going to go through all of these. I don't think this really has to do with the point of the meeting. I just left them on here for informational purposes. But everybody's flood insurance is increasing a little bit. It has been for the past 2 years based on the new legislation called the Homeowners Flood Insurance Affordability Act of 2014, and they pretty much presented this to the people there just to let them know how that worked. But the main purpose of the meeting was to inform the general public that these new maps for flood insurance are coming out. They're called firms. They can be found, let me skip through most of this stuff here. This is really they can be found on this website here. It's called frizz.nc.gov/frizz, and you can go and pull up your parcel and you can see if there's been any changes as a result of the new mapping for your flood elevation or the rating that you've been given for that property. So with that being said, there's still going to be a 90-day appeal process. There'll still be some presentations on this to the general public, and then they'll have 90 days to appeal any changes that the new maps may create. I don't see a whole lot of changes in Kitty Hawk as far as making it worse and more expensive for the property owners here, but they'll still need to get on this website and verify that for themselves, and if they have any issues, they can appeal that to FEMA. With that being said, I'll turn it back over to the mayor. He's very knowledgeable on this subject as well, and if there's any questions, there's also a website here, ncfloodmaps.com/fact_sheets. talks about the purpose of the flood maps, and there's tons of acronyms that these guys use, so I tried to spell out everything, because sometimes it gets really confusing. But this kind of gives a good explanation of the flood maps and how they're going to take it through the process and when the adoption will take place and what will happen to your rates, if any. So that being said, I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
All right, thank you, Andy. I appreciate you doing that. Folks, this is important, and I'll tell you why it's important. I actually went to that website, pulled up my property, and the first thing I noticed was the base flood elevation went from 9 foot to 8 foot. You think, okay, that sounds good, except we had a 7-foot flood. So, what are they doing? And then the other thing I looked at was a factor that said, well, as they calculate what they're doing here to fix your rate, if you have this flood that goes into your home, how high would it be? They actually have a factor there. So they lowered my base flood elevation and then told me my house would flood under this circumstance to 1.5 feet inside, and I don't know what they're doing. My advice to you is pull your property up, check it out, be prepared to say what is the deal here. For example, we expect that the addresses might not be there. My address wasn't even there. There was one on both sides of that. And if you went to click on the house, the structure, there were 2 places I could click on the structure and get a different figure. Same structure, all right? So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me just yet, but it does make sense that I'm warning you, check your property, know what's going on, because it's going to affect you and it's going to affect your rate, and you need to be able to talk to somebody and say, what are you saying to me? Because they got my house way over square footage. It looked like they took the block from the Google map, and that's where they did their mapping, and said, okay, this is a 3,500 square foot house. Well, it's not. So what are they including? So pay attention, please, and that's why we brought this to your attention. I know we don't have many in the audience, but I'm hoping people will get the word out. You really need to do that. Network it out, if you will. All right. Anybody else got a question?
And this information is available on our website. Not necessarily the PowerPoint, but all the important information that you'll need to look at the new rate insurance maps is posted on our website, on the homepage on the right-hand side.
Anybody? No? All right. And we have a town code amendment request here. This one kind of caught me off guard a little bit. Who was going to do this, Rob or you?
I'll do this one.
Okay. You're a cat man.
Now I'm a cat man.
We got Andy in here a couple of months, and the first thing he's dealing with is
I'll be
feral
eating,
cats.
yeah. I'll be in my office eating kibbles and bits.
Yeah.
All right. This ordinance is basically adding an impoundment provision to our animal ordinance. We already have a provision that says that the Dare County Animal Control is our authority to regulate our ordinances when it comes to animals. But we don't have anything in there that says that we would contract with them basically to impound any dogs and cats that they were to acquire from the town of Kitty Hawk town limits. And basically what this will do is, once they impound it, it's up to Dare County and their policies how they control the impoundment, whether they return the animal, whether they euthanize, and we don't want to, I don't think, get involved with that. They have their own set of policies there, how they manage and operate. So what this does is just give them the authority to impound the animals, and then after that, it's up to them to do as they see necessary or by law what's allowed once the animal's impounded. So it's just really a housekeeping measure, because there are times that they do come out and impound dogs and cats, strays, and they just need the authority from the town to do that for the town of Kitty Hawk.
All right. Any further questions? All right. Do I hear a motion to approve this?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Put those cats away. All right. Now, Mr. Town Manager, you're up again. Financial update.
these presentations tonight. I didn't want to tell you before the meeting. What you have before you is a financial update. This financial update, I've been here since January. Our new finance director came on several months ago, so we haven't really had the opportunity to give you the information that I know you've been receiving in the past. This is something we're going to propose to do quarterly, if it's okay with the town council. It's similar to our budget. It compares our budget versus actual, basically in a budget format. So you'll see the budget and you'll see your updates in similar format as the budget. What this will do is allow you to determine where the town is as far as revenues collected and as far as your expenses throughout the year, 4 times a year. I think that's probably what I've seen the standard be as far as providing financial reports. Of course, if you want financial reports monthly, I'll be able to provide those to you as well through a computer-generated printout. We can do that. It's not a problem. So really what I wanted to do today is kind of give you an overview of what these quarterly reports would look like. I can do a quick presentation, or we can just do it by just giving it to the council. It's up to the town council's desires. But what I like to do is basically provide some benchmarks for the council, and I'll show you the format of the report here in a second. But when we do these reports, we're going to have benchmarks such as the first quarter being July through September. Your benchmark will be 25% collected revenues and 25% of expenses. So if you're at 75% of expenses in the first quarter, you probably have a little bit of a problem there. You need to look at that. So it's really basically really simple reports, really easy to read and understand. And then you can go through all the way down to your fourth quarter. The current report that I'm going to present tonight is of May 31st. It's 11 months out of the 12 years, so it's really not a quarterly report. It's just kind of where we're at 1 month before our year end, being that we've just got started and we're trying to catch up. As an overview, as of May 31st, that's 11 months into the 12-month fiscal year. The fiscal year actually ended June 30th, but this information is all caught up from May 31st. But as of now, we're in the current fiscal year, but kind of an update on what we did last year. The property taxes, as you'll see, are budgeted in your report at $4.2 million, and year-to-date we collected $4.5 million. And there's still 1 month left to go, mind you, on this information. So we're well ahead of the game as far as our revenues being collected from our ad valorem. That is our largest revenue source for the town. Tax collection, this is stuff as local option sales tax, occupancy tax, the land transfer tax, and electric utility. We budgeted $2.6 million and we're at $2.2 million. Now, that's $318,000 deficit. You may look at that and say, wow. But what happens is we still have to accrue as of June 30th. We still are yet to collect some of these revenues from the electric. They come in quarterly, so we don't, once June 30th closes, we don't receive those revenues until August, but in our books, we'll have to post them back into this year. So I think we're going to be right on target in that area. It's just right now, you're a little bit below the 91% is where you need to be as far as revenues collected, because you're in the 11th month and you're at 87. So you're still fairly close. Permits and fees, you budgeted 104. We've collected year-to-date 111. So you're already at 100% of that in month 11. Intergovernmental revenues, these are monies we received from other government agencies. Power bill and grant monies, you're at 102%, so you're fine there, and we still have 1 more month of data to include. Fines and forfeitures, smaller revenue source. We look at these, but we don't freak out if they're a little bit less. It's a $3,000 revenue source, and we've collected $2,400, so we're at $1,100 deficit, and we still probably will collect some in a month from now. Interest earning, we've done good on our interest, as you know. The interest rates are at an all-time low, and we budgeted $10,000 and we collected $15,000 on our interest. So we have a lot of money, I believe, with the Atkin Bank, and they offer a pretty decent interest rate for a money market account, and it's liquid money, so not bad when we're at 150% collected so far for that. You get into other revenues, this is surplus property, office rentals, DNR, Icarus revenues. We're at 207%. I believe a lot of that is, we budgeted $21,000, we collected $45,000. And the reason for we collected more is I think we sold a piece of equipment, an old truck on gov deals, and I think $10,000 and maybe one other piece of equipment. So we sold a little more than we budgeted for, but So we're fine there. And then transfers, this is where you don't, it's okay to be at zero with the transfers, because this is transferring that we budgeted for last year, transferring from our fund balance into the general fund to balance the budget. So we haven't made that transfer yet. We may not need to. So that's a good thing. So our fund balance will maintain without having to transfer $228,000 in revenues from the town's, basically the town's savings. So for right now, you don't touch that until year end anyways. If you need it, you move the money in. If you don't need it, you don't need it. So that's okay to be at zero. Our general fund expenditures, as you can see, the target there at the bottom is 91.6%. Usually it's going to be 25, 50, 75%, and then at year end 100%. But for now, we're doing the 11-month. It's a little confusing, so I apologize with that. But so we should be at 91% expenses. We shouldn't expend more than that. So we kind of give an overview of all the departments, and all your departments are below the 91.6%. So if there's anything above, we would kind of take another look at it to see if we've made the expense early in the year, and we're not going to have to make another expense later in the year, so maybe there's a reason why we're over, but this helps us keep a target on our expenditures. Kind of gives the council kind of a benchmark too as to where we're at budget-wise. So as you can see, we've collected, I didn't do the overview of revenues, but we've expended $5.3 million, 73% of our budget. You still have another 926 that will move from beach nourishment. So we're going to be well under our expenses for the year, I feel, at year end. So it's a good job by all the departments to maintain within their budget. So what's next? We accrue the revenues and book expenditures as of June 30th, and then we will have an audit for 15-16. So really in the next couple months, 3 months, you'll be getting the audit report from our auditor, which will show all of our fund balances and our financial condition of the town. And then as July 1st, which we've already had, is the start of our new fiscal year. So we'll do a year-end update once we finish up June. That'll give you a good idea where you finish the year at, and then we'll have the auditor come in. So our next report will be September 1 for this new fiscal year and the new budget that was presented back in April. So if there's any questions or comments, but what we'd like to do is sort of just present this to the council on a quarterly basis. I know there were some other things you may want, and if you do, then fine, we can add those to the sheet. But a lot of the information from the previous financial updates, just repetitive information as far as balances and things of that nature. Really what only applies to the town is money for the fiscal year is the only thing that really changes throughout the year. And this does a good job at recapping all that. So Liliana's worked hard to put this together, and I think it's a pretty simplified quarterly updates for the council.
Thank you. This actually has been a really good overview for the public in general. But my question is, were you planning to just give this to council for our eyeballs once a quarter, or were you planning to make a presentation every quarter?
We can put it on the agenda. It could either be consent agenda, or if you want to do a brief presentation, it's council
Well,
desire.
I don't know that it needs to be repeated every quarter. That's the
No.
reason I'm asking the question. What you've done tonight, it probably gives the public more information than they've had
Yeah.
maybe in a long time.
I think the audit does that yearly.
Okay,
And then I can
I
give
agree
you.
with that.
I
We
just
all
is
in
sort of-
agreement with that? All right. So are we satisfied with the quarterly? Because we've been getting something every month, but he is right. It's been a lot of it repeat and repeat. So we're good with this,
Yeah.
but we don't need it live every quarter on the agenda. We don't need it on the agenda. All
We can
right?
just include it in
All right.
for the council.
You got it.
Thank you.
All right. Town attorney.
Hi, I suppose I'll at least introduce myself for those who don't know me, and you can stop wondering how Mr. Steve Michael cut so many years off. So my name is Casey Varnell. I'm an attorney at the same firm. I'm with Sharp, Michael, Graham, and Baker as well. Been down and around here for 2 years. At the beach, that is. Been practicing for going on a little over 7 now. And I will be taking over for, as you know, Mr. Michael's He's retiring come July 15th, and I'll be taking over at that date. And I think we were talking earlier, and we'll do something a little more formal post, July 15th. But in any sense, that's who I am, and I look forward to working with you guys.
All right. He's going to be the same firm, basically, but we need a name within the firm in order to do what the law calls for. So that's kind of the reason. But the firm itself still assists in various categories within the firm to do whatever we need. That's what it amounts to. And I didn't know Steve wasn't going to be here. I was going to say I do, and how much I appreciated working with him. And so you're going to have to pass that on to him.
Absolutely.
I did enjoy Steve. He was easy to work with, and he worked hard for us and did a lot of things that normally, wouldn't be asked of you, but he did them anyway. So we do appreciate that. And we'll make a formal motion at the next meeting, but as of the 15th, you're going to get me the paperwork necessary to turn it over before the next meeting.
Or prior to the 15th, yes, Mayor.
All right. Anybody else? No? Okay. Then we have town council. Jeff, you got anything?
Yeah, yes, I do. I'd like to welcome Casey. Thank
Thank you.
for coming on board. And also, I'd like to, something was brought to my attention on Saturday. I was coming down the beach road at the Carlton Smith Bathhouse, which is also known as our Kitty Hawk Bathhouse, and I noticed the emergency response vehicles, and a young gentleman I know was walking across the road, and I asked him what was going on, and he had told me that our lifeguard had just pulled a young lady out of the ocean. And I got to thinking, there are some are helping. Sometimes, they seem forgotten somehow to me. And I got to thinking the man risked his life to go save another person's life. And I took the time to go by and find out who this gentleman was. And his name was Travis, and I went and met Travis today and thanked him. And he was the most humble young man you'll ever meet. And he wanted all the credit to be given to his team, his captain, Cole, and his whole squad. He didn't want the recognition himself. And it's just a great thing that that family was able to enjoy the 4th of July. It could have been tragic. And a young man risked his life. And I just wanted to thank Chief, make sure you pass that on to Cole and that whole lifeguard service for what they're doing for our locals as well as the tourists. That family's life could have been dramatically changed without that young man's heroism. So thank you very much, Chief, for your whole department and Cole and your lifeguards. Thank you. That's all.
Welcome, Casey.
Thank you,
Good
ma'am.
to have you with us.
Yes, ma'am.
And Melody, thanks for all your hard work on the insurance issues. And to everybody else on the staff, I think we have a great staff out there working for us. So thanks to everybody, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, welcome, Casey. And I ditto what Jeff said about and not only lifeguards and fire department, also the police department, public works, everybody in the town does an outstanding job. I mean, I'm very proud of every time that, you see our guys out there in the field. They're just busting their butts and putting their lives on the line. And it's very important. It makes me proud to be a Kitty Hawker.
Okay. Welcome, Casey. Glad to have you. I just got a couple of quick things. This past weekend, Chief Johnson, if you would pass on, I went through the intersection where the police officers were directing traffic. They do one heck of a job. It was hot, traffic was backed up. My intentions were to bring these guys some water, and when I got up to the checkpoint where they were stationed, they already had water. They were out of the car directing traffic. They had smiles on their faces. One of them waved at me. They're just doing a heck of a job. I've been there. It's a long, hot, tiring day. Usually when you get home, you're not smelling very good either. But just pass on our thanks for what they do, and I very much appreciate it. I know this whole town does. Willie, this may be a question for you. Is there a schedule, or what is the schedule for DOT cutting grass on 158?
No schedule. A few years back, they went to 5 times a year, and it's usually only 3. And they came through in May, and I would not expect them again until next month.
On my same trip out Saturday morning, it not only looks bad for the citizens of Kitty Hawk, it is embarrassing for our tourists and vacationers to come over that Wright Memorial Bridge. One of the very first things they see is grass that's 1.5 feet high. I didn't think about it long. I started to get my Cub Cadet and go out there, but I changed my mind very quick after I saw the traffic. But if there's any way we can check on that to see what can be done, it looks bad.
Yes,
Thank you, Willie.
Well, let me make a comment on that. Before I turn the RPO over to Lynn, that subject came up, not just in Dare County, but statewide as far as the 10 counties that are affected. And it was brought directly to Jerry's attention. And the bottom line is, it's a matter of money and will coming out of the legislature and that sort of thing. I think that's where the problem really lies. But it's not been ignored, and it has been mentioned before, so I do what you can, but I know where it's going when you make the call. Thank you.
Right after they strike the beach road crosswalks.
Get your Club Cadet wound up.
And on the subject of what's going on up there at 15812, Chief Johnson was called upon and tasked to do something up there, and we have Dare County and I think Currituck still helping us. Are they? No? Huh? Again, have they been up there at all?
Last time, the first assignment was 2 weeks ago, and they failed to show, so I had to call officers in to work it. And we recently, Sergeant Wiggs notified me today that they said that they will not be helping us now.
I'm sure they're aware that it's helping them out also, right?
That's right. So we're directing their traffic, but that's fine. And I do want to say that the officers that worked this weekend worked 14 hours on Saturday and over 13 on Sunday directing traffic. So it's a huge issue. We're doing the best we can, and everybody's real nice. Some aren't, some are, but that's the business that we're in. So thank you for recognizing them. And a lot of people do. I get text messages, and people that know me in the community are sending me messages, and they appreciate it. That's where we are with that, and I'll touch base with you on that tomorrow.
Are all the other Dare
Yes.
counties up,
Yes, sir.
Southern Shores and,
Yes, sir.
all right, so that little hiccup up in Currituck is still a hiccup.
Yes, sir.
Sounds like maybe we need to get on that again.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, Casey, welcome,
Thank you, sir.
and I'll make it official when you give me the paperwork.
Yes, sir.
And I don't have anything else, so, public comment, anybody? Let the record show, no one came forward. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor? We're out of here.
Irvin, go fry some shrimp.